This is another episode of Got Time with Christopher John, your scholar and gentleman in a hoodie. It is amid chaos that creatives are called to provide elevation and profound perspective. The griot has culturally been an essential creative force in preserving and promoting our stories. Stories told through spoken word and even through dramatic interpretation. In some West African countries, the griot is responsible for collecting and preserving the history that is of value and relevance to the community. A living repository or oral tradition, the griot is often seen as a societal leader. The trusted griot often interprets or critiques events. A historian, storyteller, praise singer, poet, or musician, the griot shares stories through a variety of ways. Joining me at the table is a self-identified New African, a dramatic artist who understands the arts are a blend of our blood and culture, is the heartbeat of our people. She's the founder of War Theater, a tribe theatrical warriors with a mission to win the war declared on the diaspora of African people. She's a dear friend of mine. We go way back. Akosua Akoben. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Man, it's been a long time.
Yes, it has.
I'm glad you have the time to come to the table and join us. I want to go back a little bit because we were the early reenactors at the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes,
There's a legacy that's here at this table. And before we were talking, I'm not quite sure if you're aware of this. This is the 50th anniversary of Colored Girls.
Oh.
Now, for those that don't know, for colored girls who have considered suicide when the rainbow is enough, is a choreo poem that premiered 50 years ago in 1976. The play follows 7 nameless women through a world of racism, oppression, and sexism, capturing the brutal, tender, and dramatic lives of these women. It was nominated for 2 Tony Awards in 1977 and another 7 Tony Awards in its revival production in 2022. This groundbreaking choreo poem is a spellbinding collection of vivid prose and free verse narratives, and you were featured in one of those productions a while ago, and you were Lady Purple, right?
Yes.
Can we talk about that a little bit?
Oh, yes, absolutely. That was my first time being on a stage and on a college level theater production. So that was the first time for me. So set the stage, literally.
And I was looking at a picture that I have. I don't know if you know I have it. It's a picture of you, and you're at front, but you have Sharni. Mm-hmm. That was on there. Jarika. And Jarika, if y'all don't know, Jarika's on Chicago PD, doing all these wonderful things. That. The other ladies I don't remember as much, but Sharni and Jarika.
And Chantel Moore.
Wow. And so how was that experience for you doing that? And how did, when you look back on it, just being a part of, a play that was so meaningful, especially when we talk about women's perspective?
Oh, yes, absolutely. What's interesting is that my course at NKU, we had a Black Women in Literature course, and that was one of the poems. That was one of the books that we read, and then I took another race and gender theater class, and we read it again, and I was like, you know what, this book just keeps popping up. I was really passionate about it. So when I heard that Dr. Daryl Harris was going
Dr.
to,
Daryl Harris,
my
yes.
goodness, when I heard he was going to produce it and direct, well, he put together the cast and everything and direct it, I had to be on it. And he did something interesting. We had already graduated from AKU, and he had open casting for anybody that had graduated to come back and play that role. And I had to come back and play that role. I had to audition. It was an amazing experience. From the time that we started auditions all the way up into the end, the last production, it was an amazing journey for me.
Wow.
So Ntozake Shange, she was already set, in my heart, because as a dancer, and being able to be in a piece that's not just dramatic, but also dance, choreography, it was a dream come true.
And you mentioned Dr. Daryl Harris. It's been a long time since I've even exchanged and talked with him. He played a very vital role in my career because I wasn't in the theater department. I was a writer. I'm an English major. And so when I started my internship at the museum, he put me through boot camp. It was theater boot camp.
Get out.
It was 2 months of torture. But it's like anything. When you are exercising, when you are working out, you're going through the pain for an end result. And he prepared me, to step on the first Black History Month at the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center. I'm there in costume with sometimes it was 20 people, sometimes it was 100 people on floor, and I had to get rid of my own insecurities and say, I have a story to tell. And this wonderful story about Reverend Jermaine Wesley Logan, and I did that for many years, and much appreciation to Dr. Harris, for sure.
Yes. I feel the same way about him. I remember the first time I seen him on campus, he was like really tall, right?
And all the
then
jewelry.
He had the earrings. I was just like in shock, like, wow. And he walked up to me and he said, I heard about you, race girl. And I was like, what does that mean? I had never heard the term. And he's like, I want you to go and look up race girl and then come back and tell me what if that doesn't apply to you.
So can you?
That was my first time ever meeting
when you
him
looked
on
it up,
campus.
what did it say?
It was a person that, when I looked it up in general terms speaking, he said that it said that it's a person that that studies and somewhat directs their life around race and racism and issues of racism. So I thought when he first called me the term, I thought he was kind of making fun of me as like starting trouble on campus or whatnot. But really what he meant is, a scholarly person that focuses on race issues of racism. And that's really what the term means.
And that's
generally
you.
speaking, that was me.
That's you.
He was on point. So, after he said that and I saw that he was offering a class on campus, race, it was race and gender in theater. I had to take it. And I was part of the process of getting him hired on campus. I sat and interviewed him when we were hiring Black faculty and staff on campus. So I've seen him, but I didn't really get to interact with him privately. I didn't know you were that
Yeah,
I was on the hiring committee.
Yeah. Wow.
We hired him, Tiffany Hinton, and there was supposed to be a Black psychologist that was interviewed, that was excellent, but he didn't get the position. But yes, that was my first professional interaction with him, and then seeing him live in person, walking campus, and that's the first thing he said to me. It means so much right now. It really does.
Wow. That's outstanding. So, I mean, you have, you've embraced theater and storytelling at many different layers. And so I want to talk about a little bit about the responsibility of that. Can you, how do you unmask the sacred responsibility of storytelling?
Well, I'm gonna go way back and say that the first time that I ever seen any like theatrical expression was at church. My grandmother, she was pretty risque, and she did a reenactment.
Oh wait, hold on. You say
Sojourner.
risque. You say in church and risque usually don't go together.
And it shouldn't. And it should, because she shocked everybody in the congregation.
Okay.
She did a reenactment of Sojourner Truth. And she did the piece, I Am a Woman. So she did the whole thing, with the woo.
So she exposed her arm and her breast.
And Brazil.
Yeah.
Yes, right there on the pulpit. It was like, and my aunt and my mom were like, we were so embarrassed. And I was like, yay, Granny. Go, Granny. I was so inspired by that. I was like, you know what? I'm shy. I hardly ever talk, but my grandmother, like she showed me that there is no such thing as fear. When you get on the stage and you embody the spirit of the character that you're reenact, even if it's a fictional character, like you can bring to life and you can change people's lives, because that's basically what she did in that moment for me.
Wow.
Yes.
Did she know that played an impact? Were you able to share that with her?
I never really got to express that to her, but she saw it in my acting.
Right.
She came to everything we did.
I tell people when they say, when they mention it, you got to say her name now. Was it?
Barbara Jean Watkins.
Barbara Jean Watkins.
Barbara Jean Watkins, and then Favors, because she got married.
That's
Yes.
powerful. So, we talked about legacy and identity. I want to talk a little bit about that, because, we talked about mutually our involvement at, a national museum playing that role. You talk about, what you did at NKU, Northern Kentucky University, and so forth. And what you're doing, what you have done and what you've continued to do and what you're doing today. So how does legacy and identity play a role through your eyes?
So, that was the first time I'd seen a historical character that I learned about for so many years.
Now, who was the
Sojourner Truth.
Okay, but who were you portraying when we were at the Freedom Center, though?
I portrayed Harriet Jacobs, also known as Linda Brent.
Yes.
So I will say that when I chose that historical figure, I learned about her in Tiffany Hinton's Black Women in Literature class. Mm-hmm. I read it, and I was like, when Dr. Darrell Harris presented the opportunity to me, he told me, go pick my character, come back with a narration, and we'll go from there. And I already knew who I was going to pick. I went straight for Harriet Jacobs. Her story is amazing. It's amazing. It's so amazing that people, to this day, still think it's fictitious. They still believe that it was a made-up story. Because how, for 7 years, can she endure being in a crawl space, watching her children grow up? 7 years, not being able to speak to them. I'm sorry.
No,
but
I think it's important because we're steeped in history. It's important for listeners this might be the first time they're hearing of this story. Mm-hmm. So can you share the significance of Harriet Jacobs' story, just right quickly? Unpack. You talked about 7 years, but if you could just explain that a little bit.
Oh, my pleasure. So Harriet Jacobs, and she grew up in North Carolina, at the time, and she did not know that she was enslaved. At 6 years of age, her and her brother, they lived with their parents in a house. The whole time their parents were enslaved, no, they didn't know. They were just children. And it wasn't until her mother passed away that she found out for the first time that she was somebody's property. Her life changed at that moment when the will was read, and she found out that now she would belong to someone else, a baby. And she took care of that baby for a long time, grew up in a house. You would think that a 12-year-old is still a child, but by that time, they're nursing, taking care of children, some having children by that time. Mm-hmm. But by that time, she realized this might be my life forever. And I don't want this. She saw her grandmother go from being enslaved on the same plantation to purchasing her own freedom. And, it was made, she was made to believe that eventually her father would be able to purchase her and her brother's freedom. Didn't happen. It ended up that Norcom, that was the name, his Dr. James Norcom.
Yeah, the white guy in the
Yes,
story. Yes, yes, yes.
The father of the child that she was enslaved to. He wouldn't let anyone else purchase her. So purchasing her freedom was not even an option. When she seen, people in her family, get their freedom that way, and then she learned about what was happening in the vicinity of where she was with the rebellion, with Nat Turner's rebellion.
Yeah.
And it did exactly what enslavers in the area thought it would do. It inspired.
Inspired, yeah.
It inspired the enslaved Africans to revolt and to plan their runaway, their getaway. And at that moment, that's when she decided, yes, that's what I'm gonna have to do. I'm gonna have to leave. I'm gonna have to run away. And so she became a fugitive for 7 years before she was able to head up north, because a lot of work went into the Underground Railroad, what they were doing for safe passages from the south to the north.
But that's that venture after that 7 years where we talked about, she was in the attic space,
Yes.
right? And so just imagine she also had children.
Yes, she had the children for the purpose of being sold away from her enslaver, because he was becoming he had become
He was making
a
advances
nuisance.
with her. Yeah.
Yes.
He was trying
Constantly,
He was making advancements towards. It was unwanted advancements. So she said, "I don't want to be with you, but out of spite, I'm going to be with somebody else.
Yes.
I'm going to have these children," and that made him upset.
Even more upset. Yes.
And so, but she hid out, and for those of you that you can still find the story. It is an amazing story, because I remember that story, Miss Jackie Wallace at the museum, very kind, resourceful educator. She's truly a blessing to me as in my career, but she was gravitated towards that book as well. And so we had a program where we were working with teen mothers. And that was a story that was mandatory reading for the teen mothers, and we would facilitate conversations about that, about womanhood, about women empowerment and things of that nature. So I can see why that story spoke
Yes,
to you.
it resonated with me. It's called Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl, written under the alias of Linda Brent.
Oh, yeah.
Because even when she finally got up north and she sat down to write this book, she was still being pursued by Dr. James Norcom and his family. They just could not allow her to get free. I mean, she eventually had to purchase her freedom, which is something that she did not want to have to do. But a friend of hers went ahead and did it, we just sick and tired of him.
Right. It's interesting.
It is what it is.
I didn't think about it until now. So while you're telling that story on the floor of Harriet Jacobs, I'm telling the story of Reverend Logan.
Okay.
And the one thing I didn't think about it until we're speaking right now is that Reverend Logan, they called him Jarm when he was enslaved in Davidson County in Tennessee. He grew up on a distillery plantation. But for the first 10 years of his life, he didn't know he was enslaved, because he was also a product of an African woman. Her name is Jane, but they didn't want to call her Jane. They called her Cherry. And the youngest brother of the family there, the Logues, David. And so, and he was one of 3 children that they had together. And he even talked about how his father, David, treated him as a son until about the age of 10, to where things had changed. Then he started to see that, yes, they were property, him ending up being sold, into being sold to his uncle, who truly didn't value his humanity or his brothers and sisters or his mother's humanity. And so he was exposed to the harsh reality of the situation as well. And so it's interesting that we were on the floor, you're telling that story from a woman's perspective, and I'm telling my perspective from a man's perspective of being enslaved and going through that that childhood process, and how that can shape you, how that can also put a fire underneath you. And in Reverend Logan, he received a letter from Sarah Logue, who was the mistress of the plantation he ran away from, and she talked about, you need to pay me. She said, you need to pay me. You supposed to be a good Christian, and you supposed to be a good Christian man. You preaching, and you stole yourself, and you need to pay me. And so he wrote back a vicious letter back to her, like talking about the hypocrisy of that. And he refused. He was like, nah, I'm not paying you nothing.
And she, Harriet Jacobs, she felt that at one point in her life, it was worth the payment. And when she talked to her brother, because he ran away, he was a runaway, he was like, I would never pay for something that didn't belong to somebody else. And it sat with her, because she debated with him about this, but our grandmother did it, she debated with him about it, and he's like, no, I'm never going to pay for something that doesn't belong to someone else. And she thought about that when Norcom kept pursuing. And she was like, you know what? I'm not either. Somebody else will have to pay, because I'm not. And she never did. She never paid a dime. But it's interesting too, with those stories, even though people can't believe what our ancestors went through to get us where we are at this point. Those stories seem unbelievable. They seem like they're just fictitious and just a beautiful story, of someone's imagination. And in comparison to the stories that people told in Africa before coming over here, most of those stories were made to prevent.
Yes.
You making a mistake. So the drama was equal, even though one was just to warn you, to keep you safe, and the other one was an experience that our people had. And we still have to make people understand how tragic and diabolical that experience was to this day. It's really sickening to me how I have to defend it. I have to defend these stories.
But we have to continue to do it.
Oh, it's
we have
never
to continue
gonna
to do it, not only defend those stories, but also create our own as well.
Yes,
and I
sir.
see you doing that. We talked about a little bit about the early days with you, and so I want to fast forward to what you've been doing currently. And so you have this a tribe of theatrical warriors. So can you tell my listeners about this tribe of theatrical warriors that we call War Theater? Could you just share
my
what that's about?
fearless partners out here? So recently, the last time I saw you actually, we had did a piece at an event called Judgment Night, and it was called the Dismantling of White Supremacy, White Out.
What would we expect? Anything less from the race girl, right?
Yeah, right.
Ain't that's what
I'm living in my purpose. I'm living in my purpose. That's all I have to say. And what's interesting is Judgment Night came first. I was thinking about Dr. James Smalls. I don't know if you're familiar with him, or Professor Smalls. And I was thinking about like a lecture that he had gave when he was just talking about how our ancestors, the Haitians, called on their ancestors. We used our African traditions to solve our problems. They were a part of the solution. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna write a screenplay about that. I'm gonna write a screenplay about our ancestors coming back. That's what I'm gonna do. And while I was writing it, I came across one of your episodes. I mean, literally, I was putting the finishing touches on my piece.
My
and I
good
came
friend,
across
Dr.
Yes.
Robin Martin.
Robin Martin.
Yes.
First time I ever heard of the sister, but she was speaking on, scholars that I was very familiar with. I mean, she was going down the same path. And Judgment Night was supposed to be a reckoning. And then when I saw the episode that you did with her, it gave me an in-between. Like, okay, before I put the reckoning out there, I need to give my folks another chance at this. We need to really sit down and discuss what whiteness really means, what race really means. Like, do you embrace it as much as you pretend you do, or is it just convenient when you get the benefits, of being white? And I wrote the stage production Whiteout at that moment. And I did a lot of work on campus, of course, but I worked with STAR, Students Together Against Racism. That was the organization that I joined, the first organization I joined on campus, then eventually became the president. And then it kind of became a legacy because then my husband ended up being the president. So it just was passed down. And that was the first time I worked with white students on campus to fight against racism. Like, it was intentionally, we were trying to deal with retention rates on campus for Black males. It was like we had like 5 major focuses: hiring of Black faculty and staff, dealing with the Way Down East statue of D.W. Griffin on the campus, getting rid of it off the campus, having conversations about his films, Birth of a Nation. And so it was a life path that started there, and then it came to here. So the first person I thought about reaching out to, because it's a one-woman production, was someone that I worked with on campus. And I knew she was going to accept the role because it was really meant for her. Wow. I'd heard her story. It was in alignment with what I wrote about the main character in it, So we sat down and we would talk about it, brought up, a whole lot of issues that were going on campus at the time, because DEI and all that stuff, people's positions being taken off campus, a lot of things happening. So the conversation went to are you courageous enough to take on this role? Because people are going to come for you with this. So you're talking about replacing your race, whiteness, with your culture that was taken from you.
Right.
You're white and you want to go on stage and white out who you are.
Yeah.
And she was for it. She was 100% for it. So you can't call her anything else but a warrior, someone that would take on that position. I mean, it's symbolic on the stage, but the conversations were real. The whole purpose was to discuss what whiteness means to you. What does it mean to be white? Is it a culture? Is it a part of your identity? Or is it an eraser? Is it something to erase your identity? Something that you stand behind for the privileges it gives you, as opposed to being a part of a culture and who you are.
Yeah, and I was, you reached out to me, and you had said, I think you said, I couldn't sleep after seeing your episode with Dr. Robin Martin. And look for the episode on my YouTube channel. Absolutely. It's I guarantee you can watch it more than once and you can pull out a lot of information. Yes. Because we talked about bell hooks. And what's crazy, I'm mentioning bell hooks. I saw a reel the other day, and I sent this to Robin, to where the current occupant of the vice presidency is coming out with a new book. I think it's called, I can't think of the name of it, but he has released 2 books. Both books mirror the same names of bell hooks books.
Wow. And
the reel talked about to where he's taking the name of bell hooks books in a way to erase her books in some way, because what happens is when you put in that search engine for that title, his to pop up,
right,
and not bell hooks.
Wow. See.
And so at the first time we were like, maybe it's just a coincidence, but now the second book. So, but yeah, bell hooks. And I'm gonna be real with you. Robin, she introduced me to bell hooks, and how influential she has been part of her development. And I think what you're talking about, the play talks about is, it talks more about humanity, right?
Yes.
Because, you talked about whiteness, but it's like the character is like, but there's so much about me. Whiteness is a small percentage. I have all these other things. And it's amazing how people, they make that whiteness such a high priority, even against their own best interests.
Against their own best interests, that's right.
So those are the things. And then you did the play at 6
6
acres,
acres,
bed
yes.
and breakfast.
And then it allowed for me to be even more creative, because I'm like, okay, so we can't do it here without incorporating some of the great people that participated in the Underground Railroad in Cincinnati, Ohio. There's no way. So I had to bring the reenactors back out. And I did. And I mean, the thing that I did that I usually never do is bring the fantasy and the the realism together. I'm not going to call it fantasy. I'll just call it like African traditions, mythology maybe, but bringing in Fat Gete to present the whole night. And like, Fat Gete is like a jokester spirit. So the whole purpose of using him was to not make light of the play or the situation, but to show you the irony in it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And who better to do that than someone that's always living on an entity that's always right on the line, or should I say at the crossroads?
At the crossroads, yes.
So yes, but we had Margaret Garner, Levi Coffin. And some of these people I really never heard about until I started doing research for Judgment Night.
Oh,
I wasn't even privy to Levi Coffin. I knew nothing about him. And we had our first rehearsal at the library in Northside. And they had a whole mural about
Levi?
Yes, about Levi and like Hamilton Avenue, and how that was very privy in the trail that people went. Okay, I'm gonna go all the way down there, but I'm not trying to leave us off the subject. But yeah.
So this is the thing, though. One of the things I want to, and I tell people, the beautiful thing about history is that it's more gray than it is black and white. Levi Coffin is considered the president of the Underground Railroad. But what I tell people is that he believed in abolishing slavery. He believed that black people should be free, but he did not believe in equality.
Right. And that's where Marriott Fawcett was so important, because she was the pretense to Rosa Parks with the streetcars here in Cincinnati. Because here, under the facade that, if you're here in the free states, then you have the advances of being free. But her being a black woman, a hairdresser, very prominent in the community, she was even told that she couldn't get by a conductor on the streetcar, that she couldn't ride.
Yeah.
He didn't want to take her money. Yeah. She took him right down to court.
Yeah. I mean, the Fawcetts, her husband Peter Fawcett, who had a business here. But yeah, she was a civil rights activist, not only for, and also women empowerment as well.
Oh, absolutely.
So it's very fitting to have all that.
And in education, very influential in education in Cincinnati.
Right. The other thing I would say about it that when you talked about that Hamilton Road that goes through College Hill, North College Hill, that is also the route of what I did my capstone on, when I was getting my master's degree, and that is a group of 28 who escaped out of Boone County.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so I did my capstone on that. Yeah. And so what's fascinating about that story is that you had so many people involved. Yes, Levi Coffin was a part of that, but you also had John Hatfield, and there were two, and you had John Hatfield, and then you had
You can add John P. Parker, even though he wasn't directly connected to Cincinnati, he had a lot to do with the passages
yeah.
here.
Yeah, absolutely.
John P.
Absolutely.
Parker.
But that story about the 28 is an outstanding
It
story
is.
where you
I-
talk about a mock funeral. So
Right.
you talking about using your theatrical
Yes.
abilities. Can you imagine, like, it's a funeral procession
Procession,
in
yep.
broad daylight, but they're freedom seekers. They're escaping enslavement, but you think it's a funeral. So they have the black community here in Cincinnati, either from Little Africa or Bucktown or Little Bucktown. They gathered their resources and provisions, provided a wagon, casket, clothes and all this, and so you're thinking it's a funeral procession, but no, it's a getaway.
It's a getaway for 28 people.
Yeah.
And I think every single person, I think a baby might have passed away on that journey.
Yeah, baby
but
died in
yeah.
College Hill. Yeah, he
Yeah.
got sick. The baby got sick. But they made their way all the way up to Canada,
Yes, they
and a
did.
white woman by the name of Laura Haviland, who she's a warrior. I tell people, I said, we talk about I do a modern take on Black history, but Black history is not exclusionary.
No, it's not.
I elevate and talk about those good faith people who did not carry, or not of African descent, so to speak, but they carried a spirit.
They still had their humanity.
That's what it is, a spirit of humanity. Laura Haviland was one of those individuals that received this 28 that escaped from Boone County, Kentucky, that went through Cincinnati, went through College Hill, and when they made it up to Canada, when they crossed over Michigan, she was the one greeting them, welcoming them, and making sure that they, go on to set a home in freedom there. So, I mean, the storytelling, it's powerful and it's needed.
Absolutely.
So definitely, I want to get you out on this right here. So what is next for you in Ward Theater? What's coming up in 2026 for you?
So I have a whole lot of things that I'm trying to put out there, but not to rush anything. I'm learning how to be patient, because that's the reason why I caught your episode and I went in that direction. But I'm taking a seat back from film, because that's where I was going with before we did Judgment Night and White Owl. And I'm going to continue on with our historical reenactments. So coming up in June for Juneteenth, we'll be doing, I brought Harriet Jacobs back.
So you're working with Lydia?
Yes.
Okay, outstanding.
We recently did I think they call it Voices of Freedom. So I brought back Harriet Jacobs again after 15 years. After 15 years of not reenacting her.
She's needed.
I brought her back, and that's what we will be presenting at the Juneteenth celebration on the 20th at Eden Park.
And before we know it, June's going to be here, so that's going to be at
Yes.
Eden Park,
Yes.
that Juneteenth weekend at
That
Eden
weekend.
Park. And I know Lydia, I'm going to give her a shout out, Lydia Morgan. She has been the head of the local Juneteenth program for, I think it's 40 plus years now. It's been some time. It's been quite a few decades. And so I'm glad you guys were able to connect.
Thank you. Thank you for connecting us. I hadn't talked to her since, well, I don't know if you know who Baba Kurt is, but they were doing something in Eden Park for 1 year. And that's right up the street from where I grew up. And that was the first time I met her. And I knew she didn't remember me, because that was just so long ago. That was like, about 10 years ago, maybe 15, same amount of time as Harriet Jacobs. Right. So your connection, that brought us back together, ever since then. So, yeah, I'm going back into the historical reenactments again, and a lot more. Just look for street theater this summer. Now, when we do street theater, we just pop up, so you never know. Until we're there, where we're gonna be. So
you're gonna pop up, and we need
pop
people
up.
to pull up.
We just pop up and pull up. So that's what I have for 2026.
Outstanding. Well, I want to thank you once again for blessing us with your time. It's good to go back down memory lane a little bit. and talk about what we've done in the past, what you've done in the past, but also the work that you continue to do. You also got your own podcast too as well that you're
Yes.
doing. And so I want to continue to support you and elevate you. We can only get through these times, current times, that we can only get through it together. We got to be a support system. So I definitely want to keep you encouraged and keep you lifted as you continue to use your art and tell these wonderful stories.
Thank you. And if I could ever get you back into acting and doing historical reenactments, I will do my best. But when you get inspired, you know who to call.
I don't know.
On that note.
I'll pop up. I'll share some few words. I can tell some stories, but I don't know if it will be necessarily in costume and whatnot. But definitely, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So much.
Thanks for having me. I'm honored.
Joining me next at the table is an artist, educator, community builder who serves as the storytelling director at Wordplay Cincy. With deep roots in hip-hop, poetry, and performance, he uses the power of story as a pathway back home to the soul, guiding communities to reclaim their internal liberation. Grounded in empathy and purpose, his work creates spaces where stories spark growth, connection, and transformation. Brandon Isaac.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. What's up? Where you get that from? Where you get that bio?
Hey, don't worry about it. We do a lot of work here at Got Time. We want to make sure you feel comfortable.
I feel good.
We want to make sure you feel loved.
Yeah, those are some nice things to say. Those are really nice. That's nice.
I definitely want to thank you for taking the time,
Appreciate it.
To come to the table and as we, unpack, storytelling.
Yeah.
And you do that in many different ways. And so, a question I want to start off, with you, and I asked my good friend previously, how do you unmask the sacred responsibility of storytelling? Because storytelling is a responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
We have many people out here telling stories that are careless about it. So how do you embrace that responsibility?
I think it just comes from, I only can speak for my personal experience, and I would just say it's my roots, like knowing where I come from, knowing about like my great-grandfather. My great-grandfather, like on my dad's side, if I'm not mistaken, he was like some type of preacher in Mount Bayou, Mississippi, and that was like an all-black town at one point. Like they talk about Tulsa, but people skip over Mount Bayou.
The jewel of the South.
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%. And my great-grandfather was a preacher there, and he would travel around and he would tell stories and he would, preach his word. So just that power of voice, I'm like, okay, I put that in my back pocket. And then on my other side, my mom's side, my great-grandfather, he was in the south of Alabama. He was in Alabama, and he told his 10 kids, like, yo, I'll be back. And he just left. That was the Great Migration. So he just dipped. He came up north, came to Winters, got a job over at GE, and just started a new life. Then went back to get his 10 kids, like, all right, we good. And he came back. There wasn't no phone or nothing then.
Right.
So he just came back to get them, and then moved back up north. And he kept his word. And just knowing those type of stories, that what my family had to do, and knowing other stories too that I'm not going to get into, but just knowing like, I got a responsibility to, like, they took it as far as they could take it. I always try to be like, man, what would they think? Like, where would they want me to take it? What would they want me to do? They didn't want me to stop in just Cincinnati, or they didn't want me to just stop and just work at GE in Cincinnati. Like, how can we take our family history further? And then, so just spreading that story, spreading their energy, spreading that word and that spirit. So I think that's what they would have wanted me to keep doing. So that's my responsibility to them.
Right.
I owe it to them.
Right.
So yeah.
And it's actually, let me correct myself. It's Jewel of the Jewel of the Delta.
Jewel of the Delta.
Jewel of the Delta. And so you are a great grandson of the Jewel of the Delta.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I never thought of it like that. Yeah, man. That's deep. That's deep. Yeah.
Gotta carry that with you.
Absolutely, 100%.
So, we talked about responsibility. With you, I would say, we're going to get into Well, let's do this first. Wordplay.
Yeah.
So you are the storytelling director. So can you unpack for my listeners, what it is, that you do at Wordplay, and the people that you impact at Wordplay?
Wow. So that's a title. Do everything. Wordplay. The storytelling director job is to like handle like social media, community engagement. But I do a bunch of stuff. Like I teach art workshops for kids. I help them tell their story through many different forms of art. So whether that's poetry, whether that's picking up a camera, getting involved with music, I reach out and get other teaching artists to come into the building to engage them and to help tell their story, whether sometimes that's in a school. Sometimes that's at like Aiken. Aiken is my main space where I go, so shout out to Aiken High School. And then I got kids at the building. We do stuff with them, and sometimes we're just a third space as well. But I do a lot of that, and historically it's always been just, creating spaces for kids to tell their story. And then, over time, it's turned into a lot of different things. Just being a space where they can just be, creating that space. Cause like it used to be like, man, I want to teach this curriculum, but sometimes, man, after school, man, kids need a place they can just be. So that's who I'm impacting. Like a lot of the elementary school kids that go to Chase Elementary in Northside, they walk down to Wordplay. They were getting bullied at the library, and then they found us, and they were like, yo, what's this building? And they came in to the building in the North Side, and then, we open our doors to them. They play video games in there. Sometimes they make art. Sometimes they just go to sleep. You know what I mean? And we do a lot of different things for them. So we just try to be that third space, that brave space for them to show up, that safe space for them to show up. So we just try to be community, man.
And you talk about that third space. That's that bridge between school and home, right?
Yeah.
Which is needed.
Yeah.
When you talk about that, I think about historically. That's the kind of work that the Black Panthers, were doing in Oakland. Being that third party between school and home, and having resources in that space, as you said, for children to be. To have that safe space so they won't get bullied, so they don't have to be in the streets and all those things. So,
100%. Man, that's deep, man. That's interesting because I find myself, so my best friend, shout out to my best friend, Free. He's from Watts. But we talk a lot about books, and we see ourselves in books. He was like, Brandon, man, I think we in that space now where, man, like, these books, they resonating with us because I think we need to be the ones writing them now. It's our turn to start telling the stories and start writing the stories. Because, like, I see, I go through pages of, like, Asata, and I go through pages of, like, Bobby Seale, and I'm reading. I'm like, man, these people are me. It looked different, but, like, they doing this, like, these are revolution. Like, man, I feel like I'm a revolutionary. I'm doing something like that. It just looks different in a different time, because I look around, everybody ain't doing it. You know what I mean?
No, they're not.
And especially, in that space of seeing like younger Black men in that space. At least here, I don't see a lot of it. They're out here, few. So, and I do know like only 2% of Black males make up, teachers in the education system here in our country. So, I just think about that stuff like that, man, and I just try to, my presence alone, just looking at those numbers, I'm like, man, just showing up to these spaces is revolutionary in itself.
But I think it also, too, it creates an example for our young boys to see that a Black man can be caring and nurturing as well.
That part. Yeah.
Because that's sometimes you see our Black boys, they're not exposed to men who's going to nurture them, that's going to care for them, with no concession or the qualification. It's not, and that's why they get caught up in gangs and things of that nature, because they want to have that feeling of belonging. And so, and so you're creating that space for them.
Yeah, man.
I would say the one thing that I was able, me and a few of my line brothers, we participated.
Yeah, man.
It was at Wordplay, and I want to talk about this because I thought this was what,
This is dope, man.
it was the dinner table.
The dinner table.
And it was a place where
Yeah.
us as, men from, I'm in my 50s and you had, some of my line brothers, they 50
Yeah.
plus more than older than I.
Yeah.
Yourselves
Yeah.
and these young boys from
Yeah.
the elementary school.
Yeah.
We all sat around the table,
Yeah.
the dinner table. Can you talk a little bit about that and that
Yeah.
experience?
Yeah.
I have my own perspective, but I'm
Oh yeah,
curious
for
to
sure,
hear yours.
for sure. Well, for context, to go a little deeper into our kids at Chase Elementary. So the boys, I mean, now since you guys left, we have now like 4 new girls that came.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have girls now. But like our program started off with just boys. Like they were these boys. They were walking from Chase Elementary, and it was about eight or 10 of them. And I was telling my father just about these boys that we got in our building, and they doing stuff and they funny. And I was telling my dad, he was like, man, I always had this idea, to do something called the dinner table, because the dinner table is something that I know I got to experience. Because I told him, I'm like, yo, Pops, I remember as a kid, like, we would sit at the table and just eat, man. And, I don't think a lot of people do that anymore. And I would, you'll talk about homework, you'll talk about, what's going on, and we would just share stories at the table. And he was like, yeah. He was like, you know what? I had that too, and I want to give that back. I want to create a program. I said, let's do it with my boys, like, over at the building. And then, that manifested into y'all brothers coming out, man, coming to the building to build with them. We ate together. Each kid got a book,
Yep.
which was dope. Y'all gave them some words of affirmation, spoke life into them. And my Uncle Andre always says, man, nephew, I'm just downloading you. And y'all downloaded them, you know what I mean? Because it may not register now, but y'all download it, so it's in their subconscious. So that may hit them years later, like, yo, I remember that. Like, that was dope. So I'm really thankful for y'all coming out, man. I really appreciated that. That was a highlight. And we got to close it out, too. We need a cookout to end the year or something, man. So, yeah, but I would love to hear your experience.
First of all, you need to make sure you get your dad, my frat brother.
Yeah.
He need to go and get that fryer out.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
We can fry that fish.
For sure.
You
For
can
sure.
definitely have that on the menu.
Yeah.
But for me, it took me back as well. When I was invited to be a part of it, I was honored to be a part of it. But it took me back to my experience as well, and we talk about the dinner table, because that was also a time where you actually, like now, devices, your phone and whatever you had, you leave that there. It was more than about the meal.
Yeah.
It was about conversation.
Yeah.
It was about telling stories.
Yeah.
It was about sharing.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we were attempting to do with those young men at that point in time, because we also had, I believe, some of them, we had some, it wasn't just us and the young men. You also had, I believe, was it parents? I remember there was some women that came in. Yeah. The parents that came in.
Yeah,
it was a few-
grandmother.
Yeah.
Mom. Yeah.
And so we sat around this big table and we just talked, and then sometimes you had conversations where you had a group over here talking, whatever, whatnot. But I think we have lost that because we're so tied into devices,
Yeah, man.
and we're so tied into communicating digitally and electronically
Yeah.
to just sit down across the table to share a meal and have a conversation.
Dude.
It's a lost art.
It is a lost art, and it's necessary. I noticed that I was privileged to take a trip to Brazil last year, and when I was in Rio, I was staying with I was hosted by a family, and when I was there, I was like in a rush, like I gotta go. They was like, hey, like we all gotta go to work. We all got things we gotta do. Like, can we just sit down and have tea together, and can we just sit down and talk? And I noticed I've had other conversations with people from different countries. They still do that. Like even with like people moving out at a certain age, like they like, nah, that's something that we do. We stay together until a child or that person is ready to leave, and we sit down. And actually, my friend Manuel, he said that when he came to America, his first night in America, that was the first time he ever ate alone, and because he always ate with his family. So he was in college here. He came here for school, and he was just like, this is different, And I think that's something we do in our Western culture because we are individualistic over here. You know what I mean?
But no, I think that is something that has evolved over time. I mean, the dinner table was something that is sacred. You know, a lot of that can be blamed on TV. You know, when you had
for sure.
when you had when TV came, and then you had TV dinners, which aren't healthy for you as well.
Yeah, for sure.
And then you had little tray tables.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And so you're sitting on the couch or you're sitting on a sofa chair and you watching the television and you eating your meal. You're not concerned with having a conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
With whoever you're living with at a dinner table.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's just what we used to do, man. And it's just like, it's sad, man. I hope we can do something to get back to it. But like I said, other cultures, they still do it. Like, they're still doing that. And I don't know. It's hard. It's hard, man, to get somebody to understand that. Even those kids, they was like, man, come on. Like, some of them, they were ready to go play. They were ready to get on their phone. But I think just planting that seed, you know, that's what we got to do. We got to show that to them, you know, so they can.
They have to.
Yeah.
We're not going to give you what you want. We're going to give you what you need.
That's a fact. You know what I mean? That's a fact.
Absolutely.
That's a fact. Absolutely, man. So that was a beautiful experience, and I want to keep something like that, you know, going. That's a whole program that just needs to continue, which is so crazy, like that's a program, because that, to me, like, I got that as a kid, you know. I got that. My dad, and sometimes I got in trouble, you know, like, man, look, you ain't getting up until you finish them green beans. I ain't want to eat them green beans. I don't know, you're chewing on them green beans, bruh. So, yeah, man.
But that's the thing, too. I mean, you creating a space and a table for, it's going to be a balanced meal. You got your protein, you got your vegetables, you know, you got everything on here. And the expectation is we're going to eat this, because you don't know you don't know when the last time they have or when they will have a balanced meal that's like that.
Real. Yeah.
Because also, too, it's important, you know, that also helps with your health and your brain function for them to go to school and to be at their best. So all that is important.
Yeah, man.
So I look forward to how that's going to flourish and continue.
Absolutely.
Definitely, I'll be willing to come back, John.
Please.
I will bring another book with me.
Yeah,
you
for
know,
sure.
as well.
100%. 100%.
And so that we can do that. So before we get out of here, you know, I definitely want to talk a little bit about how you execute storytelling through hip-hop, you know, because hip-hop is deeply rooted in its origins. Storytelling is deeply rooted in there. The oral traditions of, like, the Griot.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm a 70s baby, so, you know, I am as old as hip-hop.
Yeah, you got to
you
see
know?
it.
Yeah, you know. So I got to see it all the way from the Furious Five, Melly Mel, and all the way up to you got the Kendrick Lamars, you know, today. So if you can just share, you know, your perspective, your views on hip hop, the tradition, and are there some things that have been lost along the way, and what does your artistry bring to the table?
So I gotta follow all your stuff. So views, tradition, artistry. My views. Well, okay, so I definitely, let's start at hip hop. My views of hip hop is it's a culture. It's a way of life. You know, it's like, and this is just my opinion, whether it's something like Buddhism or any other practice, you know, that's what hip hop has been for people. That's what it's been for me. It's just a culture. I think I know rap is just a genre, you know, within hip hop. There's many different elements of hip hop.
Yeah, you got graffiti,
absolutely,
dancing, breakdancing,
absolutely.
all that. Yeah.
So, you know, I chose to be an MC in hip hop. Hip hop found me. I fell in love with hip hop when I was, I was maybe 10 years old. My stepfather, he played this song by this cat named AZ called Rather Unique. You know, I heard the lines like, we was already molded in people's minds of Mulianis. Now we more messed up with a mayor named Giuliani. You could try to blind me, analyze, but can't define me. My mind's divine, heavily entwined with Gandhi. And I heard that, and I see this cat on the cover with waves and a chain. I'm just like, he talking about Gandhi? And he got on, like, he look like a dope boy. Like, that blew my mind. Like, you know, just the fact that these cats were fly and they were like talking about black consciousness and things like that. And that was like, you know, Rakim did that. One of the flyest dudes ever.
Oh, don't forget Brand Nubians.
Yeah, all them cats was fly, man. And like, and I was like, you can do that? So hip hop has always been that for me, just a place to show up and be myself and tell my story. So I appreciate hip hop, and I just think nobody is bigger than the culture. I'm only trying to offer, contribute to that culture as best as I can. And hip hop is also about community building. So I actually had the privilege to meet KRS-One, and I went to a lecture where he kind of talked about just that duty as a hip hopper, just to build community.
Storytelling and hip hop.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're talking about is how does that connect with you, that storytelling element in hip hop for you? How does that catch you? What is your perspective on that?
I think that hip hop and storytelling, it's just a space. I always say that it's a space for me to communicate the work. I think that we've come into a culture now where everything's a product. Hip hop, for me, I don't really want anything from it but the space. So when I'm entering, or when I'm on a beat, or I'm rhyming on a beat, or I'm writing, I'm just communicating the destiny. I'm communicating the work. I wouldn't say hip hop or storytelling. I wouldn't say it's my calling. I would just say that that space is there for me to tell what I'm doing. And
okay.
It's there for me to talk about the work that I'm doing with the kids. It's there to talk about the work that I'm doing with the community. It's okay my thoughts on what's going on in the world. It's just for me to express it. That's no different than a cook expressing what they feel through food or anything. And I try to put what I was talking about earlier in our conversation, my great-grandfathers, in that work. I try to put that soul in it, so people can have something to feel. Because I feel like that soul is lacking in so many areas, in everything. It's lacking in the food. You go around Cincinnati right now, it's a lot of restaurants, but the food sucks. Because there's no soul in it. But there are certain spots where you eat, man, that feel it. It's kind of like, and I've said this on many other interviews, but I gotta always show love to my great-grandmother. It's like when you're making a cake, my grandmother would have this caramel cake that she would make. Mm-hmm. Oh, bro, I can give you the recipe right now. You can't duplicate it. You know what I mean? Because it was something that was in here that she put into that cake. And that's what I want to put into that music, is more soul, more feeling. And I feel like that's been the biggest thing for me with hip hop and storytelling is just putting more feeling in it, putting more heart out there in the world, because everything's a product, everything's for something to gain, but we don't have a lot of soul. So I would say, to answer your question, I just want to put my soul out there, put my heart out there, communicate my destiny through it.
And I think through that, what you do when you become to the microphone or in the studio, and you come with that sincerity, and you come with that genuine perspective, what you do is you bring your soul to it. That's going to connect with somebody.
Absolutely.
It's about connections. It's going to make them feel something. You talked about, that, because while you were talking about that caramel pound cake, I was kind of, I was tasting it,
dude.
Even just while you were describing it, I was just like, oh my goodness, But that is so important, because that also speaks to, you understand the responsibility of your voice. The responsibility for you to connect, for you to bring your soul there, because that's also a part of your legacy as
Absolutely.
well.
I'm glad you said that, because that is I'm real big into archiving things lately, taking family, we don't have a lot of photo albums anymore. So I know that, stuff like this, archiving this and documenting things, this will be something that will be passed on. I'm even trying to do something different now with my music and storytelling. Is a lot of artists nowadays, they either want to, cassettes are back. So a lot of artists are putting their music on cassettes again. You know what I'm saying? That's what they're doing. You got some?
Wait, hold on. You said a cassette?
Yeah, what you got? What you got?
What?
What you got?
So earlier they was looking at my phone.
Oh,
page.
yeah. Yeah, that feeling right there. Like, stuff like that. People want something they can feel. Like, you know, and like, I think DVD sales are back up.
Yeah, vinyl's
back.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
like, a lot of artists, but, you know, so I noticed that a lot of people that listen to my stuff are, like, teachers, you know, the professors, the healers. So I'm like, man, what can I give them? So now, like, I just got a grant from Arts Wave, where I'm doing a project called Pride in My Heritage, where it's like a multimedia project where I'm going into different schools and documenting kids' stories, and it's all gonna live in a book, and it's gonna have like 4 different artists that are gonna like draw a picture, and this will all live in a book, and on the back of the book is gonna be a QR code that takes you to like an album that is simply based on what like these kids are saying and what's happening. Wow. So it's like response art, and I like from here on out, I kind of want that to be what I do. Like, you know, when I make something, it's like you get a book with it. You know, that way you can go through and see the stories like, oh, this is what's happening. This is what's going on in the music. That way people have something they can feel. And I feel like that's another element of storytelling. I love books. I'm pretty sure you do.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I'm glad you said something about like legacy and duty and responsibility, because I just feel that it's my responsibility. You know, that's what my rap heroes did, you know, to carry something on, as well as my, you know, my grandparents, man, and the things that they did. So I also want to add that that's why it's important that I think a true artist has a job. You know what I mean? And I say that because labels ain't giving out money to people that want to talk these days, you know. So with that being said, you got to fund this. You know, you're going to have to put your own money up, you know. So I'm not saying you got to go work something that you hate, but find something that you enjoy, something that you love to do. Like me, I work at Wordplay, I work at a nonprofit. So it's in that same world. And I think artist said this before, you want to do other things around your art, so that way you don't like put too much pressure on it. Because if it's all about this, then it's not going to be pure. You know what I mean? It's just a product.
And that work is actually your inspiration for your art that you go into.
100%.
You know? And I think the key part about this is tell your story.
Yes.
Or somebody's going to tell your story.
That's a fact.
So you want to tell your story.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And I ain't letting nobody control that narrative. You know, that's something that I want to tell. And it's my duty. That's like Frederick Douglass. What's the Life and Narrative of Frederick Douglass? It's one of my favorite books, man. And one thing he said in that book,
written by himself.
You know what I mean? And it's a chapter where I'm paraphrasing, where he says something like, you know, just about him sneaking to teach, you know, the people how to read. And he was just saying like, yo, he said it always crossed my mind that like any of my people could be whipped at any minute. Like this could, like we all could, like there were lashes on the line. Like we could be like, but I did it, you know, because I felt it was the duty of my soul. Like it was in my soul to do this. I remember when I read that, I'm like, yeah, I feel that. Like, and that's how I feel every time I write. You know, every time I tell a story, or I'm telling that kid's story, or a kid may say something, and I'm like, you know, it's the duty of my soul to uplift my people in that way, you know. Right. So I felt Mr. Douglass on that, you
Absolutely.
know. Yeah.
The great agitator, for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Thank you once again, my brother.
Yeah, for sure.
I think we got enough for Ron to chew on.
Yeah, for sure.
At the heart of our existence, storytelling has been an essential cultural practice that preserves our stories, affirms our identities, and empowers our communities. Esteemed storyteller Mary Carter Smith co-founded the National Association of Black Storytellers Incorporated. Smith is known for reviving and promoting storytelling as an art and teaching method. As a teacher in the Baltimore City Public Schools for 30 years, she began her career in 1943 by telling stories and singing songs from African heritage. She has been the recipient of numerous awards and honors, including an installation of her likeness in the Great Blacks in Wax Museum in Baltimore, a proclamation from the National Association of Black Storytellers designating her Mother Griot, and a Lifetime Achievement Award from the National Storytelling Association. Mary Carter Smith's continued dedication to creating awareness, cultivating understanding, and promoting humanity has benefited children and adults alike. Much, much respect and appreciation. Tell your story. Tell your story, or someone will tell it for you. I'm your scholar and gentleman in a hoodie. Speak truth, tell your story, and know thy history.